think so.
Alrighty, well, thank you all for joining. My name is Emily Freeborn, and I'm a staff attorney with Fair Shake Environmental Legal Services. We are a nonprofit legal services organization that works with communities in the tri-state, in the Ohio River Valley, in the Pittsburgh area, and southeastern Ohio, all over West Virginia, and we focus on environmental issues impacting communities and individuals, whether that be from oil and gas, water contamination, a wide variety of areas. And my role, I focus on Ohio. I'm licensed in Ohio and Texas, and I focus on the Ohio River Valley on the Ohio side, primarily around oil and gas issues. I also work closely with our community democracy program. One of my colleagues, Megan Niebler, she led a session yesterday or Tuesday on the community benefits basics. And she's been involved in some other panels as well, along with our executive director, Michael Parker, and my fellow colleague, Tim Fitchett. So we are happy to be with you all today. I would like this to be more conversational. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to jump in. I am going to be starting a brief PowerPoint to go over some issues, and I don't think I'm going to if I do it from the presentation view, I won't be able to see any of my screen. So I will probably just leave it in the regular view, and that should work better so that I can still see you all and see any comments that you may have. Let's see. Okay, so let's go share this. All right, so we're here to talk about research and education to empower communities to engage in the community benefit process early on. Now, this is a challenging area because this is the early engagement part. So a lot of times communities don't find out about projects until they're well underway. So you really have to get creative in your research strategies and work together so you can cover as much ground as possible. And that's what we'll go over today. I'm going to use an example that was recently mentioned in one of our staff meetings regarding a new facility coming to Follinsby, West Virginia. So we'll get into that in just a moment. Just a disclaimer, as I am an attorney, but this is not legal advice. This is just legal information. And this doesn't signify an attorney-client relationship, obviously. So where do you start? You've heard about a development in your community, or even if you haven't heard about the development, you want to know what's going on in your community and know who's making these decisions, how you can track these decisions, who within your direct community or that's affiliated with your community is going to have that information, who can you go to talk to, where should you go to check regularly to see when that information does become available. But ultimately, in order to do research, you have to have some sort of information. So let's start with what you have. What do you know? The first thing you want to do is try to find the original source of the information, right? Is it a news report? Is it a word of mouth from someone else in the community? Is it one of your community leaders, a council member or mayor that's talked about this? Or maybe you saw a public notice. Maybe there was something plastered outside of a property saying, you know, there's going to be zoning changes. Or maybe you looked in the legal notices section of the newspaper and you saw, you know, something regarding a public comment period about a new development coming. And that's how you learned about it. So we're going to look at just general research sources to start. And that's going to be your regular old internet search platform, good old Google, Bing, all of those. You'd be surprised how effective those can be if you have the right information. The company website is going to be a great source of information. Of course, government records, and we'll go over a lot of those sources. You can even get company profiles depending on the company involved. If it's a very large company, they might have really extensive company profiles available online. Often those are paid, but they can have information about their financing, future plans, all types of things like that. And then community insight is also a source of information. Maybe community members, you're a neighbor to a property, saw some folks, you know, surveying a property, or maybe they have insight on the previous history of the property. So there's all kinds of observations and personal knowledge that members of your community might have that could be helpful in your research as well. Okay. All right. So it's best, because this is so expansive, it's best to divide and conquer. But we're going to start with what we know. So for this factory, the only thing that I heard was there's a pig iron factory coming to Follinsby. That's all I heard about. So one, I don't know what pig iron is. I'm originally from Cincinnati. I grew up in the urban community. I'm like, pig iron, is that like agriculture? Is that like, I have no clue. Okay. I do know where Follinsby is. That's in West Virginia. So I started with that. So starting with just what you know. So just the internet search with pig iron and Fallonsby, West Virginia. So anything that you know from the beginning, you want to use that to start your search. So maybe you only know the location of a project. Something is coming to the old, LTV steel mill or something like that. So then you might have an address there. You might have prior environmental permits linked to that location and environmental studies. Is it a brownfield? Possibly. And there could have been evaluations on that site of what contaminants could be in that site. That's information that you can get usually just from an address if it's associated with some type of brownfield or previous industrial activity. You also want to just acknowledge whether it's a new project or whether it's going into a space that's been used for similar activity. So that's going to make a difference when it comes to the type of local zoning regulations that apply or potential permits. They could potentially, if it's an old facility that just shut down and went out of business, they could potentially have permits that could still be valid that they could transfer to a new owner. So that's a source of information that you could potentially use. And then you want to start off doing some research on what is this industry. So, pig iron. So I had to do a little bit of Googling there, and it's a form of steel. It's a little less pure than I believe cast. Don't get me to lying. But anyway, it's like an impure steel from my understanding, and it's used to fabricate a lot of steel products like rebar and things like that, from my understanding. And then you want to think about what government agencies are currently involved and what government agencies are going to be involved in the future, because those are going to be great sources of information. Any government agency is going to be subject to a public information laws. So you can do direct public information requests and ask them for specific information that might be in their records. And then they'll also have a lot of databases that will have information just waiting for you to access. So just to have an idea of what pig iron is, let's see, I had another one here. Do this. So from what I've found in just a cursory search on a general internet website, is it involves different raw materials, including coal, fuel oil, lump ore, limestone, alloying medium. So there's going to be some environmental issues associated with all of those raw materials that are going to be needed in this type of facility. And then the way that it's formed, it's often using like a blast furnace. It's melted, there's different scraps involved. So, this is a high heat type of manufacturing process that's going to involve air emissions. So there's going to be some air permits involved just based off that type of information. So trying to figure out, just based off general information, what agencies might be involved, what permits might be involved, and all of that. Okay. All right. So I'll just show you all how my initial search result came out. One second. All right, so just in the Follansbee, West Virginia pig iron search, there was a news article. So that is the first place that I started. So in that news article, they talked about down here we go. So it talks about the council heard from Frank Rocchio, a local resident and founder of the newly formed Ohio Environmental Advocates, who noted Jefferson Metals Recovery LLC is expected to receive $300,000 through West Virginia Economic Development Authority for the establishment of a blast furnace and sinter plant to produce pig iron from slag and other materials. Okay, so what we have a name here. So Jefferson Metals Recovery LLC. So that's going to be helpful. That's going to be something that we want to take note of. We also have a government affiliated. Authorities are a weird kind of entity within the government, but they're still a government agency. They don't have as much regulations as like a EPA or something like that. They have a little more leeway, but they are still subject to public records requests and things of that nature. So that will be a good resource for additional information. We also have some information about where the site is located. Now, I'm not from this area, so I don't know exactly what that means. I don't know, I can't envision how big that's going to be. I don't know what a specific address is, but based on that, it seems like it's going to be a new facility because there is no specific address. So that is my inkling so far. Also, if you're local, another great thing to do is if you have information about the location is to go check it out. See what's close by there. You know, is there a school at the next corner? Is there a church nearby? What is in that area? What individuals in that community will, you know, have an opinion and want to join with you to make sure that this development is good for the community. Okay, so that's what we got from there. So we can move on from that. So then doing another search just on Jefferson Metals Recovery. Let's see. And, you know, it's, you know, you got to use what you have, right? We all have Google, so it's a great resource. So why not? So just Googling the name of the company involved, some things came up. One is a legal notice, and this will also support the source that you located in the initial search result. So in this legal notice, it talks about the West Virginia Economic Development Authority holding a public hearing with regard to bonds for to be loaned to Jefferson Metals Recovery LLC. It also tells you that they're organized in Delaware as a limited liability company, and they're a wholly owned subsidiary of Jefferson Metals Holdings LLC. Now, and a lot of these companies are companies created specifically for that site, for that facility. So they're often wholly owned subsidiaries of many other companies, and they can go all the way up to large corporations that you're familiar with. Oftentimes it's difficult to find that information from the bottom up, unless you have some sort of corporate records that identify ownership. You know, LLCs are pretty private. I mean, they're pretty easy to keep they're pretty easy to keep the identity of the ownership private. You only have to list your agent on the Secretary of State website. But still, that could lead to additional information as well. So now that we know that West Virginia Economic Development Authority has already had a public hearing on this bond issue, we know that there's already action going on, right? There doesn't seem to be any on-ground development yet, and that you would know that if you drove by. But their funding is being established through this West Virginia Development Authority. So a great thing to do would be to try to find some more information on the West Virginia Economic Development Authority. And let's see. Everybody doing okay out there? Let's see, 1 second. All righty. So now we have some information on the West Virginia Economic Development Authority. It's a public corporation and government instrumentality organized under the West Virginia Code, and has a 10-member board comprised of the governor, treasurer, tax commissioner, and 7 at-large members appointed by the governor. All right, so that can give you some insight onto community leaders that have more information about this project, potentially, if they're paying close attention to what, you know, this authority is doing. Also, you can see how to contact them to request information. So let's see. Don't believe there is a specific, oh, here we go. Meeting minutes and public information. So maybe the information that you have is already listed directly on here if it's something that recently happened. I wasn't able to find any specific information just listed here regarding Jefferson Metals. I didn't see any specific Jefferson Metals reports or applications, nor did I see anything in the minutes that I reviewed. But you can contact the office, and they have some information here. And let's see, staff directory. Let's see, sometimes they have a specific public information person that you can contact, or you can just contact the office just as a whole. You don't need to direct it to anyone specifically. And as far as public information requests, we'll go over some tenets of those in a little bit. But basically anything that you submit to a government agency in writing is usually going to qualify as a public information request. And so that will require them to respond within a certain amount of time, and they have to provide everything that you requested unless they have a specific reason not to provide that information, and then they'll cite that reason for not providing that information in their response to you. You also might have to pay for that information as well. So that's something to consider. But usually a lot of that information is transferred electronically nowadays. So most of the costs in the past would come from printing. So those costs aren't as extensive as they may have been in the past. So based on the information that we know so far, just researching the West Virginia Economic Development Authority, I also learned about the Brooke Hancock Jefferson Metropolitan Planning Authority, or Planning Commission, I should say. So we know this is in Follansbee. Follansbee is in Brooke County, West Virginia. So just looking at Follansbee's website and Brooke County's website, and I learned about the Brooke Hancock Jefferson Metropolitan Planning Commission. So that's another resource that should have some early information on, you know, this new type of development potentially. So, you know, they focus on brownfield redevelopment, a lot of transportation planning, and just, you know, improving the quality of life for the entire region. So this is another government resource that you can reach out to. So you can attend some of their committee meetings. You can contact different members directly. You can submit public information requests asking for specific information regarding the organization that you're, or the facility that you're interested in. And also, you know, this is the time where you want to be discussing with your community and trying to continue to gather as much information as possible. You know, maybe someone in your community had lunch, and one of the, you know, planners or one of the company representatives was there and mentioned something. And so you never know where you can get good quality information from. Now, of course, you know, you always have to verify that information, but it can lead you in the right direction if you know, talk to your neighbors and try to get that type of information. Also, the Business Development Corporation of the Northern Panhandle. This is another development organization in that region. So they're going to have early insight into developments coming in. They have available properties listed on their website right in Brooke County. So if I was from the community or I had better Google map skills, I would be able to know exactly whether one of these is actually the site of this incoming facility, but I'm not sure. It could be this tri-modal terminal because I know it's on West Virginia Route 2. So but we just continue to gather information. From this, we can see that the land is currently vacant, hasn't been updated since 2019. Let's see, it is located within the city limits and there is no zoning. So, that is a benefit for an incoming business to not have to navigate the zoning regulations within a community. But this is a wealth of information, just, publicly available on this website. And I had no familiarity with this office, the Business Development Corporation of the Northern Panhandle. I had never even heard of it before. But, almost all states have regional development organizations that work with counties and with states and with national organizations or more broad regional organizations like the Appalachian Regional Commission, I believe it's called. All right, are you guys still with me? Okay, sounds good. All right, so we're getting closer. It also never hurts to research the business itself on your Secretary of State website with just that business name. Usually, as I mentioned before, LLCs and corporations, they don't have to list very much information on, government websites or Secretary of State websites, which govern the creation of their corporation or LLC, but it can still be insightful. So alrighty, so just doing a quick search on the West Virginia. So just searching Jefferson Metals on the business entity search for the West Virginia Secretary of State. We see that it seems to be the correct company. And then we can just look and see what information you might be able to glean from here. So I think one of the things that's helpful is just knowing the effective date, like when they started. So you can kind of get an idea of how far they're into the process. So this was filed on February 28th of 2023. So this is a very new LLC. So this is very new within the process. The manager is Jefferson Enterprise Management LLC. So this is another example of, these wholly owned subsidiaries with very similar names that are just kind of stacked on top of each other. But at least we got some information here. They're based out of the Woodlands, Texas, which is, one of the epicenters of the oil and gas industry. So there's no surprise there, but at least you have a better idea of, where this business is coming from. And also another important thing about the Secretary of State information is you'll have the notice of process address. So any formal notices that need to go to the business can always be sent to the agent. So that is the person authorized for notice of process. So in this case, it is William Tuorto. So that's helpful. Alrighty. So you see how this can just be a rabbit hole. And the idea is just to take notes, make connections, make contacts within these different government organizations and even the company itself. So I don't recommend reaching out to the company initially without having some sort of better understanding of what it is you're going to ask or request from the company, and how much support and community backing that you have. But using the company website, maybe calling and asking a question or two won't hurt, and then looking at business profiles and things like that. But from here, we've already identified a lot of great resources that might have information. Most certainly the West Virginia Economic Development Authority, they're going to have some sort of loan application. That loan application is going to have, or bond, well, no, it was a loan. It was just the proceeds of the bond that loaned the money. So they're going to have a loan application. There's going to be some details in that loan application about the project, estimated cost of the building, engineers, siting, permitting, all of that information. And that could be subject to a public records request. So I would encourage you to, once you've identified government organizations that's already been interacting with the development, to go ahead and start requesting those records and reaching out to those members of those government agencies to try to get as much information as you can. There's a lot of resources for public records requests and or Freedom of Information Act request letters. And some of those are here, and they have like different samples by state at this website. So that is a great resource. So this is helpful because it will often reference the specific laws within that state that govern their Freedom of Information request. So see, this one is the West Virginia sample. So it has, pursuant, to the West Virginia Freedom of Information Act, section 29-B-1-1, etc. So, you just kind of fill in this or copy and paste or replicate this, and you're ready to go. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that we're early on in this process. this business, this LLC was only started in February. So you're looking at a long-term process of permitting, development, and who knows what will happen in the meantime. But the idea is to use your community and to continue to track this and to continue to figure out what concerns this type of industry in this location will have on you and how you can mitigate that. What types of concessions or benefits would you like to see in your community? Have you talked to the local unions? In this case, I'm sure there's going to be some, what do they call them? Well, there's going to be a lot of professional laborers required that have, some sort of certification. So I'm sure there'll be plumbers and pipe fitters, and there'll be, the people, what do they call that? Well, anyway, you can talk to your local labor unions, see if they have any information about the project, if they've been, approached. You just really have to cover as many bases as you can. And then as things start to happen, you will see those notices pop up. You will see those requests for public comments, the comments opening and things like that. Now that is great for public participation, which can be helpful in mitigating issues with a new development. But as far as community benefits, that aspect, you want to try to get involved with a strong community coalition sooner rather than later. But you really need that backing of community in order to do that. So, in this information gathering phase, you're also going to want to, build that coalition, build those, community leaders, whether they be elected leaders or whether they be, just the most active members within your group. And then from there, once you have an idea of the, issues involved and how you could potentially benefit, then you can start to have those conversations with the business to try to move towards a community benefit agreement. Let's see. All right, so we're winding down. I'm going to go through a few other resources here that you can look at, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. This is kind of just a, we started from a blank slate and we've kind of been all over the place. So I'm happy to hear any thoughts or comments. Maybe you all have suggestions and have gone through this process yourself and want to share that with the rest of the group, and that is certainly welcome. So, but as far as additional sources, to just get general information, US EPA has a huge swath of data readily available to anyone that's interested, data about industries in communities and about the communities themselves. And so that's a great place to also start. Where a project is going to be, to just learn more about that community. You might already know, this is low income, there's a lot of seniors, there's not a lot of whatever it is that you might already know about your community, but then you might find out information that you weren't aware of in EPA data or something like that as well. The Secretary of State Business Search, this is a great resource, this llcuniversity.com. They have a list of all 50 Secretary of State's business entities search forms that you can just click on, and that's helpful. Most of them don't charge you. I know Texas does, and that's the only one that I know that does charge you to do a business entity search. And that you would have to create like an account, and I believe it would be like $1.75 or something for a search for there. And then, your state environmental permits are going to take a really long time. Often those can take years. So the DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, which is West Virginia and Pennsylvania, they both call it a DEP. Ohio, we call it EPA. They all have great resources that you can use. Some are better than others. It depends on the state. But sometimes you can get really good information by signing up. I know in Pennsylvania, here they have an e-notices website option. And I think this is great. So you can register here. So I just created this user ID just recently. So it's not a long process. But through here, you can sign up to be notified when there's different permit applications submitted. And I have not been able to find the same thing in Ohio or West Virginia. So this is a great resource. Another thing you could do is reach out to someone within a specific division of the Environmental Protection Agency and let them know, I'm interested in this project coming to Follinsby. Can you let me know when an application is submitted, when you get anything on it? That is a reasonable request. You might not always get a response or as timely, but it's worth it. And a lot of staffers will follow up with you and let you know, oh, we just got a filing today. Let me know if you're not able to access it online, let me know, I can, help you access documents or something like that. But this one is really cool because you can have a municipality specific search for your e-notices. So this is why I love PA's site. So then you can add a new item, specific municipality, and then you can select program areas. You can select all. And then this, we're in Pennsylvania here, so we don't have to go that far, but just an idea of let's see, I had a case in Strattonville. Okay, so we'll do that. So boom, now any new applications that are involving Strattonville, I'll get an email notification about that. So that's an excellent resource. So that's all that I have for you today. I hope you found this helpful. It's and this is my life. Every day I begin many research projects in this manner, and then it just you just keep on going. And especially in an early stage, like any new development, it may take years, and you have to be prepared, and you have to have a good team to try to, cover all your bases. And maybe you set a reminder on your calendar every 30 days, every 60 days, or every 90 days. We'll check DEP website for permit application, or, any of the other resources that we looked at. That's a great way to keep yourself on task and to keep yourself informed of what's going on with the new development. So, well, thank you all. That is my time. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer any. Oh, yes, Laura.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I didn't have any questions, but I just want to say thank you very much. It was really informative, really helpful, and gave me good perspective. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. Yes, and just, don't be discouraged. I know that it can feel like you're spinning your wheels at times, but, we all go through that. That's just part of the research process. So just expect that, and just, go with it, and you'll do great. So thank you all.